now I am recording right now, but I think that it will also record the video. It's the same. Like I'm okay with the audio only. If you want to turn off the camera, it's okay. No problem.
Uh, video, I always find, I'm always a big fan of like as real as possible, you know,
Yeah.
like all
Yeah, of
the
course. Yeah, I
details.
prefer video, but if you want, I'm okay with audio only. So yeah, thanks so much for your time. I hope that things are going well over there. Are you in which part of Bariloche are you right now?
Do you know Bariloche well?
Yeah,
Please.
I tend to go once a year to
Okay.
Cerro Catedral to ski
Okay.
with my family. So
Yep.
so yeah,
So you know Centro Campanario?
yeah, I think
Cerro
so.
Campanario?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I'm like 1 kilometer from there.
okay,
Kilometer 16.
okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do you live there or you live in Buenos Aires and have gone there for quarantine or whatever?
No, I've been in Buenos Aires from 2006 until 2 years ago. In February, it will be 2 years. So we have a son. I'm married to an Argentine girl, I told you, and we have a son, and he started primaria. So that's when we decided to move and try a new life because I grew up in New York City and then I moved to Capital and it was all these big cities and, you know, you just start to want to experiment and try to have a more natural life. And well, when the quarantine hit, it was the best possible place to
Yeah,
be in. So
yeah,
we're
yeah,
very happy.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
particularly with all the new cases that are in Buenos Aires and the city of Buenos Aires, the things are going quite crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like Bariloche. It is a really nice city. So yeah, that's cool. Do you ski as well, or not really?
I snowboard. My wife
Oh,
skis and
okay,
my son
that's cool.
skis. I'm more in the snowboard. I like to
Yeah,
groove.
I haven't tried
I
snowboard, but
surf.
it is super cool.
So. Yeah, but it's been a great, one of the best seasons because of the snow. There's been a lot of snow and no tourists, no traffic.
Yeah,
So
are you allowed to go up to the mountain with the chairs and whatever? Are they open?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah.
cool.
It's not fully open, not all the trails, but a lot of them, at least half.
And do you go to Cerro Catedral or other mountains over
Yeah,
there? Oh, Cerro Catedral. Yeah,
yeah. It's the only one that you can go to.
yeah. Well, there are one in San Martin de los Andes. Well,
Yeah.
near San Martin de los Andes. But yeah,
I
that's
don't
cool.
think they allow you yet, maybe to travel. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I don't think
So,
so.
but I'm looking to try
And
it.
are you planning to stay here in Argentina?
So far, so good. You know, there's no other country that is really pulling at us right now. So we're quite happy here. Bariloche is very exceptional because there's a huge international community here as well. So it's not like living in Salta or Mendoza or Santa Fe. You get everything here, and a lot of tourism comes through here. So it's a very unique city, and we have all the amenities that we need with Wi-Fi and high quality living, and I can be in the same time zone as my clients and my market, which is mostly on the East Coast, and even the West Coast, has good overlap. So, Europe does not appeal to me these days. Of course, there's visa issues there as well for us. But we're quite happy. We found a good school for our son, and we're pretty settling in, and time is going by pretty nicely. And I think this type of city is going to explode after a quarantine is over. We have friends who are in the capital who have lived there for many years who are dying to make their life change, and this is the time to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, you can see that when checking the moving, like the I don't know how to say it, but rent websites like, I don't know, like
Yep.
Argent Prop or some websites like those. You see that there
Yep.
are many buildings being sold, people renting, and yeah. So yeah,
Exactly.
that's cool. Cool. So yeah, I wanted to like ask you some questions, as you know, about visual sitemaps, and also some questions related to you. So
Yep.
if you want, we can go ahead and start with the first question.
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I would like you to tell me a little bit more about who you are and what are you currently working on. You like, I think that you're working on visual sitemaps and also in design to dev. So yeah, anything that you want to share about you is your time to share with failures.
Sure. I am in a group of Generation X that is essentially, grew up without the internet. So when I started in the industry, I was probably 20, when pre-internet, and I was part of the internet bubble. And so I was working in New York, and at that time, you had to be full stack with everything that you did. So my background was with animation, with design, and I got into HTML 1.0, and that quickly got into Flash, which was a very interesting time to work in technology, where you were doing some very creative, interactive work for a lot of digital agencies at the time. That's when I opened Design to Dev in 2006, after working in Silicon Alley for a while. And I met a friend in an agency I hired. He was a very talented developer, Flash developer from Peru, who migrated to New York, and we became co-founders with Design to Dev. And we decided to take the summer off to go and take a break from crazy summer in New York, and to start on a new idea that is to become a SaaS platform providing a portfolio solution for creative professionals like designers and photographers. It was a Flash-based application, and there was nothing out there at the time that was very high end. And we thought we could, do a really good offering with that combination. At the same time, we decided to take the summer off, and I was learning how to do lean startup work methodologies on the plane. I was reading a book and just trying to migrate from a waterfall mentality to agile. And as you can imagine, the things didn't kind of start to get rolling as fast as you can, because you end up in a second world country and you don't know the language, and you are distracted by many things that are appealing. And even though you're working every day, it's hard to kind of be really, hyper laser focused when you're like not in a very big urban city. So we kind of took our time to try to make the perfect product. And that kind of sort of a year and a half later became a serious impediment to our launching the project, because we were always perfectionist and trying to add too many features and not really releasing something really fast and launching. And over that period of a year, I was in Latin America to try to bootstrap things, and I acquired other developers during that time to help us. And we're not agile minded at the time. So a lot of failures from the first startup, and a lot of learnings that I wouldn't really replace and have no regrets about. And coincidentally, at that time, Flash, the technology, because a lot of startup success, I think also has to do with some very important uh, aspects that you need. One of them is timing and the decision of which markets that you're going for, how healthy are they, what's your knowledge, about them, especially if you have inner knowledge. And so, we kind of jumped into this thing a little too late. The technology flash was already dying out very fast, and we couldn't really repurpose our offering fast enough. So we decided to terminate it, and he went his way. My co-founder and I decided to take an opportunity and make a website called convertmyflash.com. And because I had a lot of knowledge, I found a way to automate a Flash website conversion into a custom WordPress theme in 72 hours. So it was a very timely startup idea. And I kind of was, I had a bruised ego as my first time entrepreneur. I failed. So I wanted to know what I can do the second time to kind of get some success and traction and get to the next level. And Convert My Flash solved that for at least a year. We had some really good success and went with essentially the opportunity where you had a lot of people in market who invested a lot of money in their Flash sites. And now we're stuck with, essentially a deprecated, technology. So they needed to, migrate, and we had the solution for them. We were the only ones actually who had that solution, and we managed to productize a service. So on the outside, the offering seemed like it was, all fully automated and fully one button kind of thing. But on the back end, it was really a team of developers that I had using techniques that were semi-automated, and that just made the process a lot faster compared to anybody else trying to do the same service manually. So fast forward, we decided to, after about a year doing that, I decided to jump into another idea that was in a completely different market and a completely different model. It was a marketplace that I tried to invent, and we did invent it. It was called Juicy Canvas. And this was a new way for people to consume art and design and lifestyle products. And we got lucky and got into an accelerator in Startup Chile. I was already married, and we already had our baby at the time. And we decided to continue with the project because there was a lot of inertia for it, a lot of market desire in the idea. But we discovered also a lot of challenges with creating a very new idea that never existed in the marketplace, and the challenges of getting traction with a completely new idea. So you're making the lesson learned there was, even though you build it, you will, if your idea is so new that consumers are hard to find to get traction for this new idea, because people are looking for, standard ideas to solve their problems, right? For example, in this particular story, we made a marketplace where we had designers and artists, right? They're the supply. They provide the designs. And then we had customers who were looking for t-shirts or art on the wall, or a bag, or a mobile case with designs from these artists, right? And there were a lot of companies that were already doing that simple solution. And we came up with a technology that allowed the consumer to remix the artwork and make it custom for them, so that they can make a derivative work that was very meaningful to them, right? So we had the technology that took the artwork from the artist and then opened it up to a consumer so that they could manipulate it and it still looked great, right? And then the other model was that they could then share and make that type of work that they remixed. They could share that with their fans, their friends, and they could even resell that work because it had to do with something that came from them and from an artist. So it was like a collaborative, what they call co-creation. It was very out there of a model. We had a lot of success initially with getting some very experimental artists from 150 countries. We had some initial traction, but we discovered that in order to get through the competition, because you're dealing with a lot of people who are still selling t-shirts the old-fashioned way, still selling design and art the old-fashioned way, but big companies who have a lot of marketing power, and we had zero marketing power. So that was a very big lesson for us. So we decided to pivot, and we then made something much more simpler that worked in a much more niche market. And that was called Pop Team. And Pop Team was basically a service that we provided to companies who have to decorate. Their problem was they want to decorate their office with artwork, right? Which every company has artwork of some kind. So we came up with a very specific solution that did that very quickly and with very great success in terms of the content of the artwork. The artwork was essentially portraits of the staff, right? So the benefit was to the CEO was like, not only does my office look great, but this is also such a wonderful team building, positive perk that shows, you know, the best part of our company to everyone, right? But in a creative way. So that had enormous success, and we had built a lot of tools that allowed us to reach out to these companies and show them, you know, what we can do. And basically our acquisition channel was always email. And we had really great success there. And it's still ongoing. And my wife, who was the co-founder at the time, she fired me basically as the CEO, and she is now the CEO, and she runs that on her own successfully for the last few years. And when I was let go of that, you know, because it's difficult to have a co-founder and a wife at the same time, as you could imagine. It's not everybody can pull that off. You start having, you know, different ways of working, different interests. And there was other opportunities that started to come up in my space where I was doing a lot of consulting work with my Design to Dev studio. And Design to Dev was essentially, since 2006, became a web boutique studio that serviced agencies that already had creative ideas and they needed execution. So I would have a lot of local developers here in Latin America that I met along the way. And I would work with them to do the production. And then the other half of our customers were first-time entrepreneurs who had startup ideas. And I would do all of the strategy, lead design, UX, roll out the product, and produce the product with my team, using the startup experience that I personally had launching my own startups. So that was the package that we offered with Design to Dev. One of the processes that I always had to do as part of my initial auditing as a UX designer, because, you know, I was the product guy for these projects, was I had to always make a sitemap, a visual sitemap that was one very useful for me to reference visually a scope of the project, right? Somebody says, hey, I need a new website for my business. Okay, let's take a look at your site. Let's see how big it is. Let's see what's where. Let's see the content. And I would do that manually, and I would put together manually a visual representation, which was, it took a lot of time to do. And I thought there, one moment I said, we live in an age of automation. A lot of things that year were, this was in 2007, a lot of things were starting to automate. And I started looking into what if we could automate this process, because it was a very long and tedious process. And a lot of times people skipped it, and they skipped it because, it's tedious. And although it had value to them, they would only do it if they had the budget, if they had the time. So by us automating this process, it is now becoming like the de facto way to start a new project, or to at least look at an existing website property that you may have and run an audit on it to understand what you have today, so that you can plan and expose opportunities for making something better tomorrow, right? You cannot improve what you don't know. So that's where we started with this, and it's now growing and growing because we're discovering essentially a whole new niche in a large continuum of production, that every consultant that works on a website, or any consulting agency that works on a website, they go through a process from, discovery, brainstorming, planning, first, designs, prototyping, launch, iterations, all that. So we are trying to solve like that earlier stage that a lot of people yet haven't solved holistically. And so far it's been amazing. We've been growing quite well month over month, even through this pandemic. And we're just trying to be really careful about how we plan our roadmap. What's really wonderful about our particular product and our market, and this is something I think is also very important to know for a lot of founders out there who are looking into, opportunities, is certain markets have certain types of consumers, and that's something that needs to be really looked at, because you're going to be dealing with these people, day in and day out. And if they are the types of people that are not constructive, not very open to giving you feedback, demand a lot but want to give you very little in return, then those may not be the best kind, of consumers and markets to go after. Even though there may appear an opportunity, they won't give you the kind of energy and the data and the opportunities to get your product to the next level. So it's something to keep in mind. In our case, we are very lucky because we are very niche and focusing on a tool to help enable other product people. And they are the folks that make the best products out there. So they understand when we reach out to them about our product and say, hey, what do you think we can do to improve? They've got a lot of great feedback. And so the product almost basically builds itself. It's just a question of us making the right kinds of decisions along the way that won't hurt us, in the short term, because we have limited resources because we're bootstrapping, right? So we can't, if everybody's saying, I want these 20 things, we need to be very pragmatic about short term saying, look, we'll choose these 2 things because it covers most of everybody's needs. And if we do these two things well, then it'll get us the kind of traction that we're looking for to get to level 3, right? So that's kind of, you know, where we're at today. And the last 6 months, we've had some major new releases that have completely changed our product from its original form. And we are, you know, looking at how those assumptions and those hypothetical decisions are playing themselves out, you know, and looking at the data. We've just released it, so far so good. But again, it's a process. We still have to do a lot of work with engagement with the users and making sure they fully understand and get the most out of these features. So yeah, that's really where we're at, and it's been very exciting for us to get to this level almost 3 years later.
Okay, super cool. Really interesting story. I will be making sure to divide this into the two first questions, because you actually answer also your backstory and how did you come up with the idea, which was another of the questions. And something that I was thinking is about the model, the business model of the business. I see that you do it like you price the service per month. At first, I was thinking that you may do it like per grade or something like that. How have you choose that like SaaS model? And yeah, maybe why? Like I think that you maybe niche into to agencies and to freelancers who need constant work rather than maybe entrepreneurs who just need one usage of the visual sitemaps. Do you understand the question?
Yes, exactly. That's a great question. You know, fundamentally, I think now there's a lot of data that looks back at the different types of business models that work well in the long term, and the ones that have reoccurring revenue monthly are really the best ones, you know, to have. And there are other offerings where they can have a blend, a hybrid of both, where they offer like, you know, one-time pay per unit, extras essentially that you can just kind of, as you need, kind of throw in there. And we're going to be looking into offering that as well. There are technical, you know, challenges there as well, and things get more complicated when you start to blend things. So for our sanity, we thought if we can be, if things go well, under what model do you want things to go well in? And we thought the simplest was the subscription model. And that was very difficult for us to sell in the beginning, because we offered in the beginning when we launched the MVP, we didn't offer that much that had enough sticking power that validated a monthly subscription. So for example, people from day one, when they went to the site, they had a need. They're like, I have a project, I need to get a website crawled, I got the map, and now I'm done. There's nothing that you're offering to me for me to come back and get more value from this. So a lot of people were, you know, mentally looking at this as a pay-per-unit thing and asking for it. And we just held on to our vision that said, look, I know it's not as comfortable right now for them, but we're gonna put a price tag that is, you know, at least in the other way makes sense in terms of like the time that we're saving them is still, you know, an amazing proportional deal. So maybe we can get them from that. But also, you know, we were always from day one showcasing our roadmap of what's coming soon, you know, so that we could give them the big vision and eventually, you know, be held accountable to releasing it. And that's what we have been doing in the last 6 months, adding more daily type of value in our product for them to use, not just themselves, but with their customers and with their teammates. And I think that was essential. But we are looking to, offer like, what we call power ups. So if you, need a little more credits to crawl a larger site, you can just buy a chunk and you can have that. But yeah, the model, came also in terms of the credits really simply because that was the one single metric, the unit of our internal costs. Because for every page that we crawl, we have to pay the cloud infrastructure for that. So we came up with a simple, formula that just said, that's really, it. Everything else is not as quantifiable. And people understand the credits because, they can see it, it's tangible. We show that to them when they're crawling the site, and it feels fine. But yeah,
Yeah, makes
that's our
sense.
model.
Yes, as models have been like growing a lot in the last years, so yeah, it makes sense to. It's a more secure way to get like to bootstrap a business. Are you bootstrapping the business, or have you raised it?
100%.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, really interesting.
100%. And no, it's very tricky. You need to marketing. Is word of mouth. We try to make the features that we've launched to make it more valued every day, and for users to come back every day. We try to make it as viral as possible so that they can share these things quite easily and freely with anyone, and to reduce a lot of the friction associated to seeing, what this product is out in the marketplace. So there's a lot of ways to kind of engineer kind of free marketing, on your application. We ran some, inbound tests as well, just to understand the different channels and how they perform. We did a month of testing there, and we discovered, one clear winner versus a lot of others that are much, let's just say, would take a lot more resources for them to actually yield anything of value. So, you have to put your eggs in the right place at the stage that you're in, and just really double down on making a better product. And this is the kind of thing where the industry that's using it, they're really into tools. And if that tool starts to become, really useful for them, even as a part-time consultant that uses it every once in a while, once they get, into an agency and they have more, requirements to use this stuff, then it spreads through the agency. So there's a circle ecosystem that we try to create there. And the trick is to make a plan that really fits, that kind of casual consultant that is very price conscious, but that can still do enough with, that plan for them to feel like, okay, this is a good deal. I got a lot out of it, and I don't need to pay that much for it. So, and if you're a bigger agency and you have, a bigger project, then, we have a plan that matches ideally for you there as well. But it's still, it's a black art. You're still always trying to optimize that and figure that out.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I will ask you a little bit more about marketing then, but yeah, it makes sense. So yeah, you had the idea of the product. You find this issue that you're facing, trying to like spending a lot of time creating these visual sitemaps. So how did you go from that idea to a product? I mean, like you were working with design to dev, within the design to dev agency, so you probably knew some developers and you had some like experience doing these kind of things. But yeah, can you like describe me how was that process of designing, prototyping, and building visual sitemaps?
Yeah. The first thing being a designer and a product lead, you do static InVision prototypes or any click-through prototypes, put it out there. Obviously, before I even got to that level, I needed to do some deep due diligence on the technology. I needed to understand what was the state today of automated cloud crawling technology. Can it solve a good majority of the use cases that are out there? Obviously, the challenge is that there are no web standards. Not every single website is made exactly the same way with the same, technology, and each one's like a snowflake. And we were hoping that we can cover a good portion of that for it to be a sustainable business, right? Because you want 9 out of 10 users that come to the site to have a 99.9% success rate. Now, sometimes you're not going to have that for some very interesting reasons. You can be on a very high profile server that has some very high level security. Different industries have that in place. So those were some challenges that we had to look at, and we found ways to overcome those. Again, not 100%, but a good 95%, good enough to feel confident to say, hey, the technology is there. It's not, it's going to take a lot of custom creative solutions. There's a lot of edge cases. Which edge cases do we want to really go after, which are not worth our time today, maybe later? And to really confirm the technology is there. And I reached out to my network of high-level developer friends of mine. And one thing that I wanted to do this time around for this startup was I really wanted a very talented CTO co-founder. Whereas my past two startups, I was the single co-founder and I hired other developers because I had enough of a programming background that I can do that. However, any endeavor that you do, being a solo founder, it has its limits. And, I was a dad and I'm now 45. So, your time and your energy needs to be better utilized. And, two brains is better than one, So I was very lucky when I started looking out and seeing who was available to find a friend of mine who I always kind of kept track of his what he was doing, because he was one of the few Argentine developers that got into a forward-thinking technology early on, and he stuck with it. And because of that, he got himself into forward-thinking startups in San Francisco, in California. And because of that, he was always working at a totally different level than most of the developers that I was working with at the time locally in Argentina. I had other friends in New York and whatnot, but those guys they have a different availability challenge there. So Luciano, who I'm talking about, Luciano Panaro, he was just coming out of a huge success with growing a hardware mobile startup called Ring, which you probably know, from a 3-person team to, God, I don't know, 50 plus at the time. And they ended up exiting to Amazon for $1 billion. So I thought, wow, if anything, this guy knows how to take a tiny idea when it was just him being a lead developer and growing the technology, the infrastructure that is required for scale and for essentially enterprise grade reliability, and thinking. Because this kind of idea that we have, even though it looks really sexy and it's there's a lot of UX challenges and what have you, there's a lot of front end stuff going on. At the core of this thing, what makes it really unique is it's 90% the technology behind this, what you see, right? And that's what I think gives us our defense, is that you're not going to just be able to just make this and slap this together, because there's a lot of challenges to crawling, and we wanted to make it, again, 95% and above reliable, and to cover a lot of different type of websites. For example, we can crawl password protected websites now, staging websites, local websites, web apps. These are things that are highly important to crawl, but very difficult, to figure out how to get into them. Sites that have high security and they're blocking you. What do? You got to figure out, alternative solutions that are creative. Things like that. So it's one of these things that require, a very experienced and creative CTO who's not afraid to look at newer technologies, try them, but at the same time be mature enough to know that we're not going to build too far of a technical debt where it's going to hurt us, when we start growing. So he did an amazing job, and because of it, we're able to build on top of it now quite well. And yeah, we have a very small team still. We're trying to get to the next level, and put together a healthy enough, traction and metrics that is appealing to our first seed investment stage, which we're trying to get to. And yeah, so far so good.
Yeah. How big is the team right now?
So right now, including Luciano, we have 2 other developers.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Cool, super interesting. I have just searched for Luciano and Ring. Yeah, I know the startup Ring, the camera, I think it is. Yeah, the security camera. Yeah, I really know that. And yeah, like I think that they sold it for $1 billion to Amazon.
Yep.
That's crazy. That is super crazy. Cool. So regarding marketing, you previously mentioned word of mouth and this circle ecosystem that you were creating between like consultants trying the software and using it, and then maybe moving to an agency and like carrying the software into the agency. Yeah, how would you say that you do marketing within visual sitemaps? Who takes care of it? And yeah, maybe some strategies that have worked well that you can share.
Marketing is handled by me personally, and we have another intern from a business school who's helping there as well. One of our main channels, as we are small, we're trying to use that size of ours to do things at small scale, but with more quality. So we try to handpick agencies and try to reach out to them with emails that are highly personalized, that say, hey, RGA, we understand the work that you're doing, and here is an example of your clients' websites that we've crawled, so that they can see directly, an actual use case that they understand that works for them. And we try to nurture those relationships through email, to catch them at the right time. Usually 90% of the time, they're not going to need something immediately that day, but that's my security. But then they bookmark us, and we try to essentially create a meeting with a stakeholder, a director level person who makes decisions, and to understand their workflow and to understand how they go about that aspect of UX, and we get a lot of ideas from those meetings, and they get a lot of ideas from where we are coming from and how we can solve their workflow. But it's all a lot of it. So personal email nurturing, LinkedIn well, and what else we've been doing. The launch on Product Hunt was one of the biggest things for us. We had one of the biggest launches of the year, one of the top 3, I believe. Went very viral there, so that helped. We got very lucky. But these kinds of PR launches, they're not really, I think, the ideal thing to plan on for startups to do as a marketing channel. You need something every day that's consistent, that's hitting the right types of people in the right kind of way, that's really authentic. So for us, it's been emails and just one-on-ones, trying to target folks. We could expand maybe more into Twitter, but because of, again, our resources, we're trying to focus on what's working. And the other thing is Google search. It's been performing quite well for us as well there. So, and that's like a steady, thing that's automated.
Yeah. I was just checking visual sitemaps on Google, and you came up in the first position, so that's great. I see that there were some other businesses doing the same. Is that right?
Competitors?
Yeah, similar websites, similar tools. Yeah, and were they at the beginning?
Yeah, so it was one of the other reasons why I made this. I've never made anything that is a copy, or if I go into something, it's because I want to go three levels and plus above it, so yeah. I did it because all the solutions out there at the time just didn't come close to what I was doing manually. So that to me was the clear opportunity. So we looked at crawlers that were doing some very powerful audits and analysis on the data side. And you had some really cool design, open canvas drawing tools on the other side of the spectrum. But there was nothing in the middle that was purpose-built specifically for visual sitemaps. And that was our, we were laser focused on that and executing that. There are some great apps that you can make flowcharts, and you can make sitemaps from scratch, and people need to do that, and that's great. But this serves a different solution altogether. This is something that is more, again, let's see what you have today. And, if you want to make something from scratch for tomorrow, we're going to offer that as well. It's actually coming up very soon. But actually, this week, we have a way for you to create the sitemap, make a copy of what you just created, and then manipulate it to make a better version of it. And if you do all of that manually on any of these other tools, it'll take days for you to put that together. So we start you with, you hit the ground running with stuff to work with rather than zero. And that's where I think we add a ton of value. And we're trying to stay focused on that path, and just add more and more value. So if you're, again, looking at auditing a site visually, let's give you more of the right data to that website that can add even more contextual, informed information for you. So, for example, plugging in Google Analytics, so you have that there, with the sitemap, and you can see which pages have what kind of, performance, things like that. Again, it's about, these days with technology, it's about curation and putting together the right fitting components that make sense for the certain market, right? And if you have the right formula for those people, then it's like the sweet spot. If you have the wrong configuration, you don't what they call product market fit. You don't have that. You're going to keep looking for it. So that's really where we're at. I don't, we still have a long way to go. But right now, this is, I think, these last 6 months, we've been really hitting some home runs with these last 3 epic things that we're releasing, and we've got a big roadmap for even more. So
super cool. And how's the business doing it nowadays? If you want to share any like metrics or whatever that you may want to share.
Yeah, I mean, metrics, I could say we have, the metrics have been a little weird, right? Since like about March, as you could imagine. But from what I've seen with SaaS companies during this year, during the pandemic, we did not take a hit like most other SaaS companies. So we basically had 1 month where we had less growth. Every month we've had month-over-month growth, except this 1 month when the pandemic hit, and it just kind of dropped maybe, I think, 7%, not more than that. So month over month, we were looking at maybe, I don't know, 9% or so growth. And we're looking to unlock a lot more now that we released these new things, and I'm going into full marketing mode. Like I've been the last 6 months exclusively on product mode, and now it's the marketing machine, and we have big plans to actually automate a lot of what I just told you about in terms of our marketing efforts that I do manually. We're going to be automating that. Well, because we automate stuff. That's the thing. So we're going to try to scale that out as much as possible. But yeah, so far it feels good. And again, we like, right now we're in this kind of small scale, which is really intimate because it makes the product much better. And we're really into those details now before we scale up and before we take an investment. I think that timing has to be just right, to do that, because it comes with other, challenges. So yeah.
Do you have like in the future goals to raise money from VCs or not really?
Absolutely. We'd like to do a seed round probably in the next 4 to 6 months. We want to start focusing on that. That'll provide us enough runway to get ourselves really sorted with a really nice month-over-month traction, and to just really polish up what we already have on the product side to essentially not need to focus on it and not watch it as hard as we do now, since we just launched it. So, because that stuff takes a lot of your time. So, yeah.
Yeah, of course, I can imagine that. That is super interesting, because I was maybe expecting that if you have had such like a success bootstrapping, you will want to keep in that way. But that is another interesting way to continue with the business. And yes, something that I was just thinking about is that, how are you planning? You mentioned like automating marketing. How are you planning to make that?
That's our secret sauce.
Really interesting. Okay, yeah.
It's our secret sauce. I can tell you, we're not going to do anything that hasn't been done by large enterprise companies. A lot of companies that I know that need to do outreach, they automate everything. You just don't know it. You just need to know how to do it well, and to do it, in a high quality fashion. A few startups ago, we had to reach out to Instagram users. So we built an Instagram analytics tool so that we could pinpoint people on Instagram. So we basically would find out, okay, let's find users who like brand A and brand B and who have influencers, followers with this ratio, and who live in this city, right? Nobody offered that, but you had to take all that data, slice it yourself, and then you had a result. And then those were your people that you had to go after. And then your software could find ways to go after them in various ways. So that gives you an idea of like one way of doing marketing automation. And because it's really also about, the trick is you want to target the right people, and you want to speak to them in a way that is authentic and, that's personal. So as long as you can do that, then adding some automation is just, fantastic, but it needs to be carefully done. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that keeping it like the personal touch is the most important thing, because
essential.
Like you receive every day emails from people that are clearly automated, that they don't even mention your name or whatever. So I immediately delete those. You need to be clever in automating things like outrage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It harms you. It harms you. It's not worth doing. But you got to find these moments. What's worth automating, what's not, and if it's the right time to do it. And again, it's all about resource management when you're really small, and what makes sense. So I got to run, but thank you so much.
Sure. There was
awesome.
Cool. There was just one last question, but I can send it to you through email, and if you want, you can record a video or whatever, and you can reply to that one. So, well, instead they are two, but one is super simple. So yeah. Thanks so much for the call, Artur. Sorry for giving you a little bit more of the time that I promised. So yeah, it was a pleasure to meet you, and yeah, whatever that you need, just reach me out.
Excellent, Nicholas, and mucha suerte con todo que haces. Estás haciendo muy buen trabajo. Muy buen trabajo.
Gracias, de verdad.
Chao.
Saludos.